Have you done that where you
Yeah, it's pretty irritating.
go for like a half hour,
Yeah.
realize you didn't record? Red light's on.
It's on?
Let's get you this way. Me this way.
I just don't like our hairy legs touching. Even if they weren't hairy, I still wouldn't like them touching.
Velcro.
Yeah. That needs to be on the video right there. Shit, it's what happens. It's summer in the barns, hot room. Gotta wear shorts.
I always wear shorts. Leadership, power, and negotiation.
Powership negotiation, yeah.
You love power and negotiation topic?
I do, yeah. It's fun because I think it's really useful. It requires a bit of self-examination.
For sure.
And some people just want to look at the environment and go. And it's like, well, wait a second. You actually are a part of that environment. So you have to figure out kind of where you stand. So let's start with just power. When we get into leadership, there's a million different things. It's a huge field in organizational behavior. Most textbooks have 2-3 chapters. This one has 2, right? But at its foundation, leadership, every definition of leadership that you'll see anywhere has the word influence in it.
Right.
So you're going to boil it down to it just you're influencing something, someone to, hopefully to some end.
Right.
There's power and there's authority. Authority is the right to influence someone. Mm-hmm. Your boss has authority, they have the right to influence you. Power is the ability to influence someone. Mm-hmm. So you've seen this many times where you have a boss, you go, you can't lead your way out of a cardboard box. Like nobody will follow you anywhere. Yes, you have the right to influence us, but you don't have the ability.
Right.
And likewise, there'll be someone on your team going, that person's a peer. Like they have no right, they have no authority, they don't have any right to influence me, but I will follow them anywhere.
But
they make good decisions, they look out for people well. Yeah, exactly. Sure. So they're different things, and usually what we are talking about when we talk about leadership in a management class is what we call managerial leadership. Mm-hmm. So you are going to lead from a position of authority. Mm-hmm. Technically, like if we're going to be accurate about it, you can lead from anywhere. Because leadership is just influence. It's all it is.
For sure.
You cannot lead without power. Power is the ability to influence. So people go, oh, I don't want to do power, and I don't want to play politics. In research, those are connected. I can explain that in a minute. Because I don't want to do that. Oh, shut up. Like, if you're not going to do that, you're not going to change anything. Right. And if you're going to change anything, you did that.
Do you want to help to influence
whether
outcomes?
You called it or not, right.
That means you have to use some element of power.
So they're referred to as bases, power bases. There's 5 power bases, and they have different outcomes, different effects. All right, we're going to get it right here.
Let's do it.
Number 1, legitimate power. Legitimate power is more like authority.
Right.
You are in charge. I can influence you because I'm your boss.
People say, I am the best boss. They go, God, we've never worked in a place like this before. You're hilarious. And you get the best out of us. I think that pretty much sums it up.
Right. Not even talking about sticks and carrots for a minute. Just because I'm your boss, I can influence you.
Some people will respond to that.
Yeah,
some people
for sure.
won't.
Some people won't. Some people say, you got to earn it.
Right.
Some people say, that's my boss. Like, and I don't know if it came from like my dad or whatever it was. Like, if someone's my boss, I'm going to do what you say.
Right.
Unless it's illegal or really, really unethical.
Right.
I'm probably not even going to ask questions. I'm just going to do it, which is kind of a problem. So there's legitimate power. Connected to those are reward power and coercive power.
Okay.
Reward power just means I have something you want, or I have access to transmit something you want. Right. Coercive power is just the opposite. I can punish you, right? So when we talk about peers, my peers can't really punish me. I mean, they can, but it's different. Mm-hmm. They don't have legitimate power. They don't have reward power, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to follow someone over there, it has to come from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Those 3 are the more formal power bases. Right. Legitimate power, reward power. I can pay. I can give you a bonus. I can give you a raise. I can give you promotion. Coercive power. I can give you a crappy job assignment. Cut your hours. Stuff like that.
Disciplinary action.
Right.
Fire.
Now, I hope that you're picking up what James was throwing down right there. We introduced the topic of power, this ability to influence others. And certainly there are people who can abuse power, but power is what we utilize within an organization to hopefully organize our people in order to get things done. And talked about 5 types of power, introduced that topic, and then those can be broken down into 2 main categories: organizational power and personal power. And we started off here with organizational power. Power that is formally delegated by an organization to somebody who's in a leadership role. It's not something that people bring to the table naturally. It's formally delegated and assigned to people. And the first one we talked about was legitimate power, and that is power by position. That is the overall or overarching definition of this organizational power. And then as subsets of those, things that people might utilize within a legitimate power position are reward power, the power to reinforce, and coercive power, the power to be punitive or take punitive action.
And then you get into the two that are really, really helpful: expert power and referent power. And some people include another thing called information power as well, but we can get to that. Expert power and referent power. Expert power.
I'm giggling for a reason, by the way. Just remind me, and I'll tell you.
No, I'm ready.
Referent power?
Yeah.
I was teaching it in 381, and this girl goes, "Oh, yeah. You mean Riz?" I'm like, what? Riz? What are you talking about?
I don't think that's what I mean.
That's not what I mean, but she's like, no, like you have charisma. Like,
Yeah.
But it really means that you got game. Like,
Really?
Yeah.
That's good to know. All right.
And
And you got Riz.
I
You got Riz,
have
dude.
no Riz.
That's not true.
Honey Badger don't care. I have no Riz whatsoever. But in general, if you were
Right.
to take it out of the game compartment,
Right.
charisma, reference power. Yeah.
Right. So that's referent power. Before that, let's get to expert power though, because this
Yeah.
is the one where I think, especially young managers, people who want to grow in their career, they can just win so easily, namely because of just Google. Right. Ask Pandora's box. So you get so much information. This is the difference between those who are willing to do their homework beforehand or not.
For sure.
And if you're seen as an expert, and if you can maintain that, you're trusted more. You have power, and you have the ability to influence people because you're not wrong. There was one of my favorite movies ever with Bruce Willis. It was called Armageddon. You remember that movie?
Of course I do.
Armageddon.
Do you remember Quincy? He was the British guy who worked at NASA.
Yeah.
He's talking to the military guy, and the military guy was like, "Was I talking to you?"
Terrible idea. Was I talking to you?
And the director of NASA goes, "That's Quincy, whoever. He's pretty much the smartest man on the planet. You
Yeah.
might want to listen when he talks."
Right.
This is Dr. Ronald Quincy from research, pretty much the smartest man on the planet. You might want to listen to him.
I'm like, yeah, that's expert power.
Yeah.
He's not in charge. He can't hurt anyone. He can't give anyone rewards, but he's just not wrong.
Yeah.
So you can, if there's a topic, like for instance, if we were giving this lecture live, anyone who's watching this could have Googled all this stuff. They'd know all about it, and they could start asking questions that would make us look stupid. They could go, well, actually, there was a study down in 2014 that said expert power is insufficient with transactional leadership.
Gentlemen, your attention, please.
And I'd
Apparently you
go, yeah, I'd be like, oh, snap. Like,
Yeah.
and it would take 5 minutes on Google.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by anybody can do this.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a little bit of time, a little bit of homework, and you can win if you can communicate it well. If you can communicate it well.
Also, if you have some sort of expertise, like
Right.
just Googling something, just
Oh,
learning
right,
a shallow
right,
amount of it,
right,
like
right.
jumping into an inch-deep pool, probably not super wise.
Yeah, it's going to be tested, for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's expert power. The last power base is referent power. And that really, just like you said, it has to do with charisma.
Yeah.
And I think they'll use words, psych literature will use words like interpersonal attraction.
Yeah.
Like you just want to be around that guy. I was with you, our families were together in up at Suncadia at like a Halloween, like harvest, and the
Yeah,
girls,
yeah.
everyone's really little. And this tall, beautiful man walks by, and I had no idea who he was. I just walked by him and said, "Hi, how you doing?" And I just stopped. I told Christy, I was like, "I don't know who that is. That's somebody." Like, I don't know who it is. It's somebody. And then Corey comes up, and I think it was Brock.
Brock Heward. Yeah.
Brock Heward. It's like, "Oh, did you see Brock?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I told you that was somebody, right?" I knew it, right? So that's what I mean by there's an attraction, not like a physical attraction, but there's an attraction like that person is just really cool. They're funny. They were the popular kid maybe in high school, like whatever it was. That's referent power.
Some people respond to that well.
Some people are
don't.
jealous and hate it.
I remember I was
Yeah.
well, not even jealous. Some people just
Hate it anyway.
I was sometimes I hang out with like high school kids, and I was at an event with a new high school kid came up and he was wearing a Pittsburgh Pirates hat. I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
Head on the shoulder, and I was like, "Oh, you like the Pirates?" Man, I've never met anybody who's like the Pirates, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to like,
Right. Barry Bonds or
charisma,
something, yeah.
whatever. Anyways, 3 years later, I knew the kid really, really well. He's like, "Dude, I hated you for that." So sometimes
Too
effective,
much, too soon.
Sometimes not effective. Yeah.
Right.
Now, to cap it all off, we have these two types of personal power, things that we bring to the table. And the two that we mentioned here in the video are expert power and referent power. So expert power, obviously based off of some sort of demonstrated knowledge or expertise that you bring to the table that commands some sort of influence within the organization or power within your organization. And then secondarily, referent power, things that you bring to the table in regards to attractiveness or charisma. So people who are extroverts who can kind of go like that sometimes can exert things like referent power. And you can use these personal types of power or influence wherever you're at in an organization, whether you're in a position of formal leadership or not.
So in general, however you're going to inform or however you're going to influence somebody, it's going to come from one of those.
Yeah.
And most people think, I'm a leader, I'm a manager. Those are the first three, but really you can lead from anywhere. Expert power is the one that's the most sustaining. It's the one that's the most trusted, tends to be the best. So if you have to use sticks and carrots on your employees, threaten to fire them or, performance management, whatever, to get them to follow you, okay, but you're at the bottom of the barrel at that point. That's pretty sad. If they follow you because they trust you, because you have their best in mind, and you're not wrong, like you know what you're doing.
Disconnected from their effort. We're talking about using those for power,
Right.
not their effort.
Right.
Certainly you want to use those as motivators.
Sure.
But
Yeah. So anyway, those are the
if
5
that's
power
your,
bases.
if that's your throne of power,
Right.
it might not be awesome.
So those 5 power bases are then, this is Locke and Latham way back in the day. No, I'm sorry. It's Gary Uckel back in the day. Funny story. I want to tell a story. Gary Uckel, he's the guy that did all the power research. His last name is spelled Y-U-K-L. I sat in a research presentation, I think we're in Chicago, next to Gary Uckel, who's, old dog, awesome. And the guy's giving a presentation on power, and he kept quoting Gary Uckel the entire time, not knowing he was right in front of him, and pronounced his name Yolk. and every time he go, and Yolk 2008, I'm like, just dying. And Gary's sitting back there, just like, oh my gosh, because everyone's looking, they know who he is, just laughing, like, yes. So Gary Yolk did a ton of the work on that, and then people picked it up. People picked it up later, along with him, and said, "Okay, now that you have those power bases, what do you do with them?" And that led into politics, which the chapter uses negotiation. Yes, that's part of it, but there's 8 political tactics you can use based on the 5 power bases, and they're connected. So you can't just pick random ones. Like, for instance, there's one called exchange tactics. Exchange tactics, it happens all the time, Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, and stuff like that. Like, okay, well, I'll sign off on your bill if you sign off on my bill, right? No big deal. Like, well, probably, but in this example, no big deal. It happens. But you have to have something to offer. What do we call that? That's reward power. You can't use an exchange political tactic unless you have reward power.
Yeah.
Maybe coercive power. I won't punish you, but generally it's reward power.
That would be blackmail.
Yeah, black extortion, stuff like that. So I won't go through each, but you can look in there and you can see, okay, to do each one of these,
You have to have
upward appeals, coalition tactics, whatever they are, it has to be connected to a power base. So a lot of the times, the people that really get into the science of this, they can begin to tease out. Step 1, what are my power bases? And you can't say, well, I'm a manager, so I have legitimate power. No. If I'm trying to influence you, what do you believe my power bases are? Doesn't matter what I think my power bases are. This is what we tell all these young leaders. What's your leadership style? And they'll get halfway through a sentence and I'll just go, I don't care. And nobody else does either. Yeah. Because it's not what you think, it's what your team, your followers think, right? Sure. You say, I'm really trustworthy, and half of them don't trust you.
Doesn't matter.
You can't operate out of your trustworthiness because it doesn't exist.
Right.
So that's what they do. They go, okay, what kind of power influence do I have over the person I'm trying to influence? And then which of those political tactics, right, works with it? Right. But when I say politics, it conjures up like all these dirty words like, backdoor deal, stuff like that. Politics is defined as the use of power. That's all it is.
Doesn't have to be Machiavellian.
You can use political tactics. Right. Political tactics to cure cancer. Right. And I hope you do. That's great.
Right.
Yeah. They're morally neutral.
It's funny that the title is negotiation, you use politics, but when we actually we would train our salespeople in negotiation, we train our buyers in negotiation, and we had to figure out, well, what power level do we want people to have?
Right.
What exchanges do we want them to be able to make,
Yep.
and which ones do we not?
Right.
It's why some companies will say, "Well, I got to go talk to my manager."
Right.
That's a very good tactic in some parts of negotiation, but certainly if you are in a position of power,
Yeah.
you want to be able to utilize those on
Right.
the team. So
Yeah, so this is good. This is one of my favorite aspects of kind of leadership because it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty nuts and bolts. Take a look in the mirror, take a look at your team, and go, what are the power bases I think I have? And then how do I use them, political tactics, how do I use them for good?
Yeah.
Right. A simple one. I'm a manager. I have access to rewards. There's reward power. Look around. See the behavior that you want. Affirm it and reward it.
Yeah.
Right. Just do it over and over and over, and it'll be emulated.
you better believe that there's going to be a Spider-Man quote in here somewhere.
With great power comes great responsibility.
I hope so. I hope so.
Because that goes
It's
back
coming
to,
from the uncle.
goes back to hopefully you make good decisions.
Yeah.
Like the qualities that we should be looking for in leaders, and going back to character, integrity,
Yep.
trust, those types
Yeah.
of ethics. Hopefully, we're looking for those qualities that build those trust levels with our
Yeah.
employees.
This is, I think we might get this in the next chapter, but that was a big kind of existential discussion that happened kind of just before I started getting into this, so early 2000s. And it switched from the question was who will lead. So it was a study on leader emergence. You put everyone in a room, who's going to end up being the leader, right? And you always predictive models to figure it out. And then it switched to who would be the best leader, kind of most effective. Because whoever emerges, just because you emerge as a leader doesn't mean you're going to be good at it, right?
Right.
And then the final question was who should lead, and it was a moral component of who do we want making decisions, who do we want kind of buck stops here, casting vision, stuff like that. Came on the heels of all the focus on World War II, Hitler, charismatic, right, Mussolini, stuff like that, and it was the danger of charismatic leadership. There's rewards, or good things, but the danger. So Jane Howell, who is absolutely awesome, Howell and Frost, 1989, they did a study, and they actually did an intervention and manipulated. They developed charismatic leadership, and there was this big meaning of like, that's not good. Like this information gets into a psychopath's hands. Mm-hmm. Like just here's the steps to get people to lay down in traffic for you. Mm-hmm. It was like, they thought they were really important.
But when used appropriately.
Right, when used appropriately, when power bases are used appropriately, you can do amazing things.
Yeah. Cool. Power and leadership.
Power and leadership.
Peace.